Welcome back to Only Talk Sports. So we talk sports every single day, or at least we try to. I'm Rose Jeffrey. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Hit that notification bell so you never miss another video. It's come down to this. The XFL season is at its end. The XFL Championship Game is here, and it's going to be between the Arlington Renegades and the DC Defenders. There are a lot of interesting storylines to come about with this game, and I'm going to go over who I do think will win the 2023 XFL Championship Game. Now, you've got the Arlington Renegades, who are at 5-6. Nobody thought they would be here. How did the Arlington Renegades make the playoffs at 4-6? It was insane that they did because the North Division was stacked. The South Division was much weaker, and Arlington got in at 4-6. But Bob Stoops, the national championship winning head coach at Oklahoma, he has been the head coach of the Arlington Renegades this whole entire season, and they've had some rough patches overall. But Arlington, they did start to improve as the season went along because they brought in Louis Perez halfway throughout the year. He started the season at the Vegas Vipers, but Louis Perez came in and he played some really solid football for the Arlington Renegades. Yes, they were actually a rough team even toward the end because they only went 1-4 toward the end of the season, but the South Division was weak. Somebody had to make the playoffs, and the Arlington Renegades got it done, but you could tell they were starting to play better football because Arlington did get more of their wins earlier in the year against teams like Orlando and San Antonio, whereas Arlington was starting to play better against the DC Defenders and the Seattle Sea Dragons toward the end of the season. And the Arlington Renegades in the XFL playoff semifinals, they defeated the Houston Roughnecks in the South semifinals 26-11. The Houston Roughnecks, they beat the Arlington Renegades twice in the regular season, but the Renegades got revenge. Bob Stoops' team got it done, and they're now in the championship game. And in that playoff semifinal game against the Roughnecks, Louis Perez was 19-27 for 289 yards and 3 touchdowns. And if he has another performance like that, there's a great chance that the Arlington Renegades will be able to beat the DC Defenders. I think the Defenders are a better team than the Houston Roughnecks, but still, Louis Perez did play very well against the Houston Roughnecks. And Davion Smith, he had 24 carries for 94 yards, and Javonte Payton had 5 receptions for 121 yards and 2 touchdowns. So the ground game was working, the passing game was working for the Arlington Renegades against Houston, and their defense only gave up 11 points to the Roughnecks. That is a really solid job on the defensive side of the ball. That had to make Bob Stoops happy to be able to have his team play a complete game against the Houston Roughnecks. And yes, it is tough for a team to beat a team 3 times in the same season, so that may be why Houston lost to Arlington. But the Renegades proved that they belong. They're starting to play better football at the right time. They're peaking at the right time, and they got a huge win over Houston. And if they play just as well again, they could beat the DC Defenders. But this game is in the Alamo Dome in San Antonio. This is where the XFL Championship Game is going to be played. That's where The Rock said it would be at the beginning of the season. So there's no beer snake for DC. And the Defenders, they played so much better at home. They had the beer snake. They had their loud crowd. So it's going to be very interesting to see whose home crowd helps either team out more in this game. It's probably going to be Arlington because of the fact that the Alamo Dome is in Texas. The Arlington Renegades are in Texas, so they might have more fans. But I do think the DC Defenders fans will travel because they want their team to win. They've had a great season, but still it will be tough for DC having to go on the road essentially and play Arlington instead of it being anywhere near their home field back in DC. And Reggie Barlow, he's a Super Bowl winning champion as a player for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers back in the day in the NFL, but he's the head coach for the DC Defenders, and both Bob Stoops and Reggie Barlow, you know they want to win this championship game to be able to add another championship to their resume. But DC, they're 10-1 this season. They went 9-1 in the regular season, and last week they beat the Seattle Sea Dragons 37-21 in the playoff semifinals to continue to show their dominance. And ironically, DC's only losses to the Orlando Guardians. Still don't understand how that happened. DC's been playing some great football all year long, except in that game where they lost by 1.37-36 to Orlando. But they were really solid against Seattle. Their defense got the job done, only giving up 21 points, and their offense was stellar, scoring 37 points of their own. And Jordan Teamo, he was 19-31 for 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions and 2 carries for 9 yards. He's been a great quarterback all season for the Defenders. He's been improving as the season's gone along, and I think that he has definitely peaked toward the end of the season. He did have 2 interceptions against the Seattle Sea Dragons. You want to keep those turnovers at a minimum, especially in a championship game. But if Jordan Teamo does not throw picks and plays a solid game against the Arlington Renegades, there's a great chance that the DC Defenders will be winning the XFL Championship this year. But D'Eriq King, you can't forget about him. He was 4 for 5 for 41 yards against the Seattle Sea Dragons in the playoff semifinals. He's a guy that comes in and plays at a high level in the few snaps that D'Eriq King gets. So the 2-quarterback system for DC has worked all year. Jordan Te'amu, he does carry the heavy burden for the DC offense at the quarterback position, but both quarterbacks can come in and be dangerous. And D'Eriq King, he's great with his feet as well. Both quarterbacks can scramble, so that will be very tough for the Arlington defense to be able to slow them down. Abram Smith, he had 23 carries for 48 yards and 2 receptions for 7 yards. And Briley Moore had 4 receptions for 80 yards. So the DC offense is really solid. They're one of the best offensive teams in the XFL. They've had a great season. And their defense, in some games they have struggled, but for the most part they do have an above average defense in the XFL. So I think that their offense and defense should definitely help them be able to win this game if they do play at a high level. But this is going to be a very interesting game. Bob Stoops, he definitely has much more head coaching experience, having won that national championship at Oklahoma. And I think that helps the Arlington Renegades in that regard because Bob Stoops is a very experienced head coach. And you can tell as the season's gone along, Arlington has found ways to improve as a team, and they're peaking at the right time. You could have a great regular season, but if you don't play when it matters in the playoffs, then you're not going to be able to ever win a championship. And I think Arlington, again, they're playing much better football right now. So they are definitely a team you do not want to sleep on if you are the DC Defenders. And this game is in the Alamodome in San Antonio. It's in Texas, so it's going to benefit the Arlington fans. You're not going to have to travel as far. DC, you're not going to have the home crowd in the Beer Snake. Reggie Barlow, he does not have nowhere near as much head coaching experience like Bob Stoops does. He did coach at some smaller schools in college football, but Reggie Barlow is a guy that is a champion as a player in the NFL, and I think that he has been able to translate that success as a player over to being a head coach, and he has done a great job with the DC Defenders. And he has a fantastic team on both sides of the ball. His dual quarterback system has worked, and I feel like DC's been a team that's traveling on the road, and I think that they can carry it over and be able to win this game. But I think both teams are going to have a great shot to win. I think both teams are going to play at an extremely high level, and I think Arlington is not a team to be slept on with their 5-6 record. I think they're going to give the DC Defenders everything they got. Bob Stoops is going to have a great game plan, but I do think that Reggie Barlow and the DC Defenders will find a way. I think they have too much offense with Jordan Te'amu and D'Eriq King. I think they're going to have a little bit too much defense as well, and I think Arlington, they'll keep it really close to the fourth quarter, but they might fall a little bit short in the end. I'm going to go with the DC Defenders to beat the Arlington Renegades 35-24 in the Alamodome in the 2023 XFL Championship game. It should be a lot of fun. Bob Stoops won't be able to win another national champion as a coach. He might be able to do it in the future, but I do think that Reggie Barlow and the DC Defenders will find a way to win 35-24 over the Arlington Renegades. But it should be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to the 2023 XFL Championship game. I hope it's a fantastic game, and I cannot wait for it to happen. But the XFL season will be over, and we'll be able to look forward to the next season when it comes around next year. But it's been a fantastic XFL season, and hopefully the XFL Championship game caps off the 2023 XFL season in a great way. Subscribe to the channel if you like sports content. Like this video down below. Comment down below what you think about the 2023 XFL Championship game and whether you think the DC Defenders or the Arlington Renegades will end up winning the championship game. Follow me on Twitter as well. Link is in the description, and I will see you next time.